Hello, friends. I am Sarah, and I am a trainer here at Jai, and I am so glad to be speaking today with one of my very own students. Cherry, thank you so much for joining me today.
No problem.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago in class, you shared a story that, covered me in goosebumps, brought tears to my eyes. It was so profound that I want other people to hear your message. So before we get into the details, however, can you tell me a little bit about your family overall? You have a fairly big family.
We have a really big family. We have a total of 7 children, um, 4 of whom we adopted out of the foster care system, all of whom have special needs. Um, we Several of my children have moved out. I've gotten older and moved out. One of them moved out and moved back in along with her fiance and 2 children. And so we have a house full right now. Um, my youngest, Mariana, we just got a autism diagnosis for. And so that's where we're at right now.
Absolutely. So you've been doing this whole parenting thing for a while, having as many
Okay.
children as you do.
Yeah, my oldest is 30.
Okay, yes, you've done this dance a couple of times here. So I'm curious, when you're talking about the special needs and the autism diagnosis that your daughter received recently, one of the common questions that we get here at Jai is, does this type of parenting apply to children who are neurodiverse? And I would love to hear what you have to say about that, given your own direct experience with this.
Yeah, in my experience, it is very effective. Um, my youngest, who is 10, who is the one who has the new autism diagnosis, is prone to outbursts and screaming and would always scream at me, stop yelling at me, even when I wasn't yelling. Um, and she was always very hard to redirect and to get to follow directions. And while working the Jai program, I started using the conscious discipline and stopping and thinking before I spoke to her and trying very hard to, for lack of a better way to put it, take the mommy voice out of my tone of voice and just approach her calmly and talk to her about whatever was going on. And she has definitely grown to appreciate that. And she is totally changing her behavior because she now realizes that I'm trying to work with her. And the incident that I talked about in class the other day was that we had been doing this for about 2 weeks and we hadn't had any outbursts and everything had been going well. And I had a really bad night and I had to run out to Walmart and she was whining and crying that she wanted to go with me. And I was just flustered because I was tired. I didn't want to take a kid with me to Walmart at 10 o'clock at night. And I yelled at her and she stood there with hand on hip and said, "Mommy, you're not doing what your class tells you to do." And I apologized and I told her I was sorry, that she was right, that I was tired and that I lost it. And she came over and gave me a big hug and she said, "That's okay, Mommy." And she actually let me go to Walmart by myself. Because we actually had a conversation in exchange that, I explained that it wasn't her, that it was that I was tired and I had had a rough night. And she was able to have empathy and she was okay with me going by myself. So,
It sounds to me, based on what you're talking about, that this is a shift. Can you tell me a little bit about Cherry prior to Jai and how you might have handled that situation? What was your parenting style? How would you have approached it differently before this training that you've been going through?
I probably would have gone and got my husband and he would have spanked. And she would have been sent to bed. Um, and so I mean, it was her bedtime. It was past her bedtime anyway. She's supposed to be in bed by 9:30. And it was just one of those nights where she hadn't been sent to bed yet. And so this was much more, I mean, everybody was much happier at the end of the exchange. I mean, it didn't require daddy interceding. It didn't require screaming. All that, because especially when you have 9 people in the house, when the screaming starts, it affects everybody. And so minus that, everybody's way happier.
Absolutely. And if I may, I remember in class you said that her outbursts historically have been a source of trauma for the family.
Well, especially I do childcare, so I have other little kids in my house, and so I really worry about the impact it has on the other children, and plus my daughter's fiance's kids who are here. Yeah, and so I'm just amazed at how we've been able to stop that, because we've been through all kinds of therapy, both her and I, probably in the last 6 years, trying to deal with behavior. And she still has issues. We homeschool because she was literally doing nothing in public school, and they wouldn't give her an IEP. But we're getting so much more cooperation at this point. And she still has a really hard time if I go out and don't take her. And she says that's because I'm her person and I'm the only person who understands her. And so I consider that a blessing that she feels that way, and that that's helping her to be able to learn to control her emotions. And even when she can't, a lot of times she'll come and she literally comes and headbutts me and wants a hug, um, because almost like a younger child would, um, because she's co-regulating off of me. But if that's what she has to do for right now to learn to regulate, that's okay.
Absolutely. And I find it fascinating that you had, in your own words, years of therapy, years of trying to quote unquote fix behavior.
Hmm.
And it sounds to me like perhaps it wasn't about fixing the behavior, and perhaps it was about fixing the relationship. Is that a fair statement?
Well, because we have multiple issues going on here, because we have trauma from adoption, as well as the special needs, and the fact that she feels like she doesn't fit in and didn't know what was wrong with her, that she couldn't do things that other kids could. And so she's was bullied in school, and she's been bullied by neighborhood kids and all that. And so that very much affects how she feels about herself. Um, she was actually excited when she found out she had autism, because she knows now something's wrong with her that has a name and that we can work with. Um, and she's a really smart kid, but she just has a hard time jumping through the hoops that normal society want and expect from her.
Absolutely. And it's,
Mhm.
and to your point, there's certainly nothing wrong with having autism. Everybody is different. And it's just a matter
Mhm.
of figuring out, what does this child need,
Right,
regardless of their label and all that stuff. But you've been able to connect with her in a whole new way.
right.
And how is it affecting the sense of peace in your home overall, seeing this shift in her?
Oh, it's way better. And I actually have a daycare kid now who is very similar. And I actually just talked to his mom last night, um, about having him evaluated, because he has a lot of the same idiosyncrasies. And I deal with him the same way I deal with Anna. He's already been thrown out of preschool. And so she came to me, and I mean, multiple times she said to me, "You're just such a blessing to us because you get it." And so, he has a really hard time staying out of people's space and um, seeing social cues from other people. And so I constantly have to intercede and help him to communicate what his needs are, or help him to help the other kids to communicate what their needs are that he's making them mad. And it's the same thing. In the past, I would have just gotten flustered and frustrated with him. And I mean, he still gets sent to the quiet corner occasionally when he won't cooperate and he needs some time to chill out. But it's being done in much more of a, you need to get control over yourself perspective than to be punishing him and sending him away from everyone. It's just, if you can't cooperate with your friends and you're not going to listen to Miss Cherry, then you need to go get yourself under control. And it's all being said very calmly, and it's not yelling, it's not reprimanding. And he's actually, it's kind of cute. It is and it isn't. But my 26-year-old daughter, who is here too, and who works with me in the daycare, hasn't figured out how to do this. And so there are times where I have to leave for our dry classes. I'm not involved in the daycare during that hour, and she's doing it by herself. Or there's other times when my daughter goes to therapy and I have to take her to therapy. And whenever I'm leaving the house, he comes up to me and says to me, "Are you leaving? When are you coming back? I like when you're here."
Oh,
And I'm sure that's why, because he feels more understood.
yeah, yeah. Not only are you your daughter's person, but you're his person too.
Yeah, I'm becoming his person too. Yeah.
Yeah, you understand what these people need, and it's connection, and it's all these other good things, and
And it's difficult. It's not easy to do all the time, especially when you're getting flustered. There are definitely times where I have to take a deep breath and remove myself, um, so that I can calmly approach the situation and deal with it. But it's been very effective.
absolutely. So, final question for now, because of
Mhm,
course, see you in class in a couple weeks,
mhm.
but how would you describe Cherry's your inner ability to regulate, to be present? What are you like as a parent and a caregiver now? How does it feel for you now, and who are you now versus before you started Jive?
I think I'm a much better parent. I'm also learning. I've been one of those people and one of those moms who puts my needs last and everybody else's first. Um, and then I would fall apart when my needs weren't being met. And so I'm getting much better at communicating to other people in the family when my needs aren't being met and then I need them to be met. I'm getting more of my needs met because I'm doing better at calmly communicating how I feel or what's going on that is upsetting me. Um, and so I think that it's helped my marriage. It's helped my relationship with other people in the house. Um, just because I have a very different perspective on things at this point. Um, and I'm hoping that gets better the further on we go and the better I get at things. So certain things I'm really good at, certain things I'm not. It's a process. And I've learned a lot that the way I was raised is not necessarily a good way to parent. And so I'm trying to change a lot of the way I communicate with other people and trying to get rid of the blaming and the shaming and the all that kind of stuff. And that's definitely the way my mom parented, and that's the way I parented. Um, my older children find it funny because I will start to do things to that effect and stop myself and try and reorganize my thoughts in a different way. And they can tell what I'm doing and they know I'm doing the Jai classes and all. So they find it entertaining. But I'm hoping over time it'll stop being entertaining and they'll see the value. So
Absolutely, and you are modeling for them in the very best of ways that change is always possible, healing is
Mm.
always possible. And in some ways, sure, it's great if a child is always raised with conscious parenting from the get-go, but there is a special gift for children who are old enough to see a transition, because all it can do is reinforce to them that it's never too late to build the kind of connection that you are building with your family now and healing from your upbringing and the relationships you have around you. And I love that you're doing this work and that you're seeing the impact directly on your family, including through the lens of neurodiversity.
Yeah, well, and I really think that, especially with Mariana, the fact that I'm trying to change and that she's visibly seeing that I'm trying to change, I think has made a big difference to her, because it's not just that I'm asking her to change. We both need to change to be able to cooperate and work together.
Absolutely. Ah, Cherry, this is powerful. Is there anything else that you want people to know if they are on the fence thinking, I don't know if this is going to work for me or my child or whatever? What would you like people to know?
I feel like it's much more effective than running to therapy. Literally, at one point, we were doing 5 different therapies a week. And this has not only benefited my special needs child, that was the one that was literally tearing the house apart, um, but has also benefited my relationship with my husband, with the other kids. Um, and so I really feel like it's more beneficial than any other kind of therapy. And it's hard because you're dealing with a lot of baggage. Um, but it's very direct and pointed. And so I feel like you get a lot more accomplished than just going to a therapist once a week and talking. Um, Trust me, I still talk about the stuff we do at child classes with my therapist, but it's been very effective for me.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here and doing this truly life-changing work. I'm glad for you, I'm glad for your children, and I'm glad for all of the lives that you touch through the work that you are doing. So, Cherry, thank you so much for making the time to speak with me about your family and your experience today.
Thanks.